UFC Freedom 250 at the White House is officially in the books, and boy, were we treated to some spectacular fights. A lot of them one-sided, but some of it was to be expected. But one fight that was not expected was Justin Gaethje beating and forcing Illia Topuria to quit entering the fifth round. Like, Topuria was a minus 500, maybe I even saw a minus 700 favorite to beat Gaethje. I, on my channel, literally said there's zero chance for Gaethje. There's none. Like, there was just no chance. The same way I thought Michael Chandler had no chance, which was, not a hot take. It was pretty obvious, right? I think anyone who watches MMA figured that out. But it wasn't obvious that Gaethje was going to win, especially not in that fashion. I mean, let's be real. Like, Topuria looked outmatched and outclassed in that fight. I mean, outside of round 2 where he looked normal, Topuria was just not in there. And credit to Gaethje, he made his presence felt in the cage. As soon as they got in there, he just knew. The way he walked from the White House, he's coming from the Oval Office, looking at the Declaration of Independence, just walks in there like he was locked in for the fight of his life. You could argue that was probably his best win of his career, not just because you take away, obviously, even the championship. Obviously, anytime you can win that, that's usually going to be like their best win of their career. But in terms of performance, the pressure, like who he was going up against, because again, I had spoken ad nauseum about like Topuria has this aura where like there's no way you're going to beat him. You're not going to dethrone him. Like, Gaethje was going to be lucky to have several moments in that fight where he had the upper hand, and sure enough, he had the upper hand for the majority of that fight. It was crazy to see. He was just, again, locked in. The power that he possesses, I know Gaethje has power. Anyone does. But Topuria has a chin, and he's very elusive, and he's quick, and he's technical, where he's going to avoid a lot of that. And he can eat some shots. It'll be fine. But no, it was not. Because Gaethje broke his face. He broke Topuria's face. It's reported that he broke an orbital bone on his face. I saw something said that he injured his ribs too. Maybe he broke a rib, which there was one gnarly part in the fight where Topuria is kind of like on the ground and Gaethje straight delivers the knee from hell to his ribs, to his oblique. My goodness. I felt that through the screen. Obviously, I'm not fighting like that. That had ripples effects so hard that even I could felt it. Tip of the cap to Gaethje. There's been so many times where he's been close to tasting gold and he hasn't won it. Obviously, if had to fight Khabib, he's had hurdles through the stacked lightweight division. Couldn't get over the hump of Charles Oliveira. And then he just goes out there and just pieces up arguably the best boxer in the UFC. Someone who looked unbeatable. And it's kind of funny because there are parallels to a month ago between Sean Strickland and Khamzat Chimaev, where no one looked like was going to come close to beating Chimaev. It was an unstoppable force. The same way it was with Topuria, and then sure enough, Topuria gets stopped. He can't come out. His corner says, nah, he's done. It's over. He quits on the stool, and rightfully so. I mean, he's damaged. You can't see out of his eyes. So much pain, I don't think he mentally broke him. It's just physically, like, how are you going to go out there when you can't see? You're already so damaged to pieces. Like, what's the point? So, I mean, and Gaethje created that. It may not have been an actual finish, right? He didn't put his lights out, but still, incredible win. Regardless of how he won it, it was always going to be a stunner to me that if he did become the champion defeating Topuria, he's the one that takes Topuria's O. It's just funny because what do you mean Topuria lays out Volk, takes away Max Holloway's lights out for the first time in his career, debuts at lightweight to destroy Charles Oliveira, but Gaethje's the one that puts him down? I think that's the thing that just makes it just added on to the, like, there's no way we're going to see Gaethje be the one that does this to Illia. I mean, back in January where he fought Paddy Pimblett, Gaethje was nice, but he wasn't like, it looked, I mean, I've said it on here. He looked ugly, as good as he was. Like, if he was going to translate that fight into this one with Topuria, it probably wasn't going to go in his favor, but he looked so much more crispier. He didn't look out of control. Again, man on a mission, locked in, and he got there and got that gold, well deserved. Hell of a job. Made me look foolish. Made a lot of bettors look foolish and thinking that Topuria was going to that far. But that's part of the sport why it's so awesome. Like, as much as if you think it's a lock, you can easily eat crow like I'm doing today, where Gaethje just goes out there and he does the unthinkable and forces Topuria to quit on the stool. Hell of a fight. I don't think anyone's going to have complaints about that. Great main event, everything, the way his entrance came out. It was just incredible. So I guess now is what's next for Justin. He's now your lightweight champion. I think you're looking at potential opponents. Obviously, Arman Tsarukyan pops into mind. Maybe you come back with Charles Oliveira because he's been looking nice lately, especially after he gets a win over Max Holloway earlier in the year for the BMF title. That's an option. I wouldn't put it past the UFC to overlook Arman because Dana White's been very vocal that they're not a fan of Arman Tsarukyan, and I understand it. The guy is very unpredictable and immature, and he blew his chance against Islam over a year ago, so I understand why they want to overlook him, but it should be him that gets the next title shot, and that would be a great fight. I wouldn't put it past Gaethje to win that one. Now after what I've seen him, he's made me a believer that he's always got a chance. He's the highlight for a reason. That was a highlight fight, and that's a highlight moment for his career. And I think now that win, speaking of what's next, what could it mean now with Conor McGregor and Max Holloway fighting each other? Imagine if Max wins, maybe Max catapults to number one, so we get that rematch. I'm sure Gaethje would love to get a rematch at Max Holloway because Gaethje's at the end of his career at this point. I'm pretty sure if he had lost to Topuria, he was calling it a career. But now that he's won, I think he's going to ride this out for a few more fights, especially if he keeps winning as a champion. Whoever pretty much beats him next, that might be where he says, I'm done. But until he keeps stacking up wins, this is what he's going to do. He's going to keep defending and continue on a legendary career. And look, again, Holloway beats McGregor. Even if McGregor wins, imagine you can get a lightweight title between him. That would be great. I mean, there's some options out there. So those are just a few that pop into mind that have the likeliest. I've seen Benoit Saint-Denis mentioned as someone. I don't think that's right. He shouldn't be on there. I'd rather you give it to Charles Oliveira or wait to see for Max Holloway if you're not going to go for Arman as the 10x title contender. You just can't. Yeah, you can't do BSD. BSD has to make at least one more nice hard knock win for him to actually get into that title picture. But he's closing in. So those are just a few options for Gaethje. And as for Illia Topuria, man, I mean, again, it just felt like now that what's next for him? What's next for Illia Topuria? It just felt like he was on such top of the world. Auras oozing, dripping, and he was just sensational. He beats Volk. He beats Holloway, puts him down for the first time in his career, Holloway, and then does it to Charles Oliveira, a lot of fan favorites. And now you lose to Gaethje. What's next for you? Do you take time off? Is it best, or maybe do you come back as soon as maybe December, November? Because, hey, you don't want to let that loss linger, right? Especially when you're someone who is so confident in yourself. Maybe there is some cockiness that if you are that high in yourself, maybe he's going to get too low on himself after that loss. But he already took to social media congratulating Justin on his win. No excuses. You're like, hey, Justin, you're the reason why I'm in the hospital. So, man, great way to handle loss with so much grace, to be honest. It was very nice to see. But for him now, if you're Topuria, you do have to get back in there. And if you're trying to fight, I think the next fight for him is probably, you're no more better fit for that Paddy Pimblett fight now than you ever before. They had that chance with if Paddy had beaten Justin in January, it didn't happen. But now I think you're back at it again, because if Illia Topuria had beaten Gaethje, you're not looking at Paddy. Paddy needs at least 2 more wins to get back into the title contending fight. Now, look, if you set up this fight, it's finally that beef that you always wanted for the UFC. Great build, great draw, and and it sets up a great number 1 contender fight. Maybe, yeah, I think it could be a number 1 contender fight for Paddy, especially if he beats Topuria. I know Topuria beating Paddy, it's like, oh, wait, you beat Paddy Pimblett and you think you're just going back to the title picture? But I think it's because he's such a draw that I think he can get that. But I think that's probably the fight you want to make. It can't be Charles. It can't be Max. Maybe you go Benoit Saint-Denis. That feels like a jump down. I just think now the perfect fight for both of them, is to fight each other. Paddy Pimblett, Illia Topuria, they got that beef. Paddy Pimblett was putting on a hilarious hate watch, calling him Whitney Houston. I was like, who thinks of this, but I just thought it was funny. Whitney Houston, okay. So whatever, I'm all for the hate. That's a real draw. That'll be a good build up. It'll be a good fight. And I think it would probably be even good. It'll be good for both of them to be like so much for their careers to get back in title picture, and especially for Illia. You know, you could finally beat down Patty. Remember your claim yourself. Put that. There would probably be no better way to bury that loss to Gaethje than beating down someone you hate in Paddy Pimblett. Especially if you do it well, it's like cool. Like not only did I get my win to bury it, I did it against him. So I think that would probably be the next move for Illia. Otherwise, it's I could fully see Illia taking the rest of the year off. You know, it's been a rough year for the last year for him. You know, obviously off the field, off field issues, off the cage issues. I think that's kind of where you want to go at if you're Illia Topuria.